Today we're on to the Initial Buckets tab. So we're going to jump to that tab on the budget template. If you haven't downloaded that already, I'll put the link here. Go ahead and get it and get in with us today. On this tab, this is where we're going to start to put in our information that we already have in our checking account. So for example, if today was the 15th of the month and I wanted to start budgeting today, this gives me a very simple way of just putting in what's in my account right now and then starting from that point. So then I won't go backwards and budget out everything that's already happened from the 1st to the 15th. I'll just start on the 15th and move forward. This makes it so that anybody can start at any time. Now, if you do decide to go back to the 1st of the month, make sure that you budget that part first and determine what you earned and what you spent during those first 15 days, and then put whatever you started with before that time period into this part right here. Now, that might take a little bit of math, so if you're not savvy on doing that, I recommend just taking the starting dollar amount in your checking account, putting that in right now, and then you don't track anything in that month that has already passed. You'll only track things that are coming in the future, and then the next month will be a full month, and you'll start from there. So let's dive in real quick, and we'll take a look at this. This is a nice short one, and we will see how it works right now. So as in my previous example, we'll talk about the fact that it might have started our month on the 15th because I just realized today that I need to be on a budget right now, which is great, by the way, and I'm glad you're here, and we need to start budgeting right this minute. So I already got paid on the 5th of the month, and I already had some of my utilities come out and other expenses, and I got paid $2,000. I had $800 in expenses already, so my starting checking account balance would be $1,200 at this point. Now, what that's going to do is it's going to roll that $1,200 over to my budget. So no matter what month you're starting in, and I'll show you how to change the month in the next video if you're not starting in January, but the templates all default to January, you'll click here and you'll notice that you have $1,200 that's rolling over from last month over or under. And that's because that's where you're going to start at, and it's going to give you a starting point. Now, let's say that it's the 1st of the month and you're just getting started, but the month before you ended with $57. You can put in your $57 and come over to the January tab and see that you have $57 already here. Now, maybe you've already allocated that money out to something that you want to save it for a future time. So you want to start to load it into your buckets. And buckets, if you haven't already watched the video, you should go back and check that video out, because bucket accounts are where you can start to store some of that money for a future purchase. So maybe you're already saving up and you've got your $1,200 we'll put back in the example, and bucket 1 is a home repair, and you've been trying to put $100 a month into that, and you know that you've already got about $300 of this $1,200 that's supposed to go to that. So if I put $300 here, it takes my amount to move to my budget to $900. Once I jump back over to the January tab, you'll see that I only have $900 that's going to the budget. And if I jump to my bucket accounts tab, it's going to put $300 into bucket number 1. Now, bucket number 1, as we named in the previous video, may be something else, like we said, home repair. So now I've got $300 that I can come and spend out of home repair without it ever touching my budget. So that's how this works. If you've been budgeting prior to using this template, you may already have some envelope system or some way of segregating your money out in place. And if that's the case, you'll put in your starting checking account balance and you'll load in your buckets to whatever amount you've already got saved into each one of those. Now, for me this year, I started out clean and fresh. I decided that I was going to start out with no money in my buckets and move everything out. There were a couple expenses that I paid right up front in January that I'm just kind of leaving off for now, but I paid those out of buckets. And so if you start with 0, you just leave everything 0 here, and it doesn't change anything. So this is where you load in your beginning number, and it will help it so that it will match out to your checking account pretty closely. And that's the whole point of budgeting, is to stay right on top of that checking account amount. So whatever you have today, put it in. Unless you're starting at an earlier time period, then you'll have to budget backwards and figure out what you should put in that you had at that starting point into this balance here, and then load those buckets. And we'll talk more about the bucket accounts and how they work and how the month tabs work and how they're loading this information over in the next few videos. For as easy as I try to make this sound, it is somewhat difficult, and I understand that. Whatever your checking account balance is today, that number will go into that amount unless you're doing it differently. And that's where it gets confusing. So if you do have questions, let me know. Now, I do want to stress that if you're not using a bank or you're not using a credit union or some other electronic way of banking, but that you're on an all-cash system, that's great. You can still enter that in here. You can put your cash starting balance or whatever you're counting in your budget right there. And then if you have some that's already in envelopes or separated out for other uses, you do the same thing with the buckets to track how much is in those starting today. But don't worry about it. When we get to the next tab, if you put in the wrong amount by a few dollars, we're actually going to check it against our checking account or our cash balance or whatever balance you're basing it on, and we'll be able to make some manual adjustments to fix whatever amount you put in so that it matches exactly. That way, it doesn't matter exactly how much you put here, but you'll want to get your best guess because then we don't have to make as many manual corrections on the next tab. So don't worry about it. Don't stress. Again, budgeting should be easier than it is hard. So go ahead and put in your starting number, and we'll go and we'll fix it in the next tab if we need to. I'm ready to join you over there. Thanks for watching. I'm extremely glad to have you here. If you have any questions or comments, be sure to leave them down below. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to hit the thumbs up. For more awesome videos, make sure you are subscribed.